Okay, so we're recording this, Dr. Cap, because we're having a personal conversation. And I was just sharing that, I love privacy crypto, and I feel a little empty not covering privacy crypto. And for all kinds of reasons that people know, if people go to t.me/epic private money, there's a favorite coin of mine that I can't begin covering again yet. But I want to promote privacy crypto. It's not one project versus the other project. And when Mike Adams and I had you on, when Mike Adams and I had Ruben on, we were so impressed with you both. I'm reaching out to you, and you and I just decided to hit record on this for me to be able to share, because I think everybody might be interested in our brainstorm here. So that's a little bit of context, everybody who's watching. Now, before we hit record, you were about to say something saying, I wish we could record this. So let's...
Yeah. Well, no, literally, because of what you were just saying, what I'm about to say, I was like, I wish we could record this, and now we are. And the point is, what you're saying about kind of focusing your energy on promoting privacy coins and projects, you're really coming into this at the right time, because actually a lot of the privacy projects are coming together. There is an element of a mixture of need there, because a lot of the smaller privacy projects, and even the bigger ones like Monero, this is the biggest one, they're all currently under attack right now from the regulatory sphere on a national and international level. On a global level, you're seeing different entities. The EU is sort of having its own anti-privacy coin focus to an extent. The US certainly has been pushing those sorts of narratives. Southeast Asia, and kind of to put the context on what I'm about to say, where we present, I'm an advisor to the Particle Project. We have been developing basic swap DEX, which is the world's most private and anonymous DEX, which supports bidirectional Monero swaps. We are now developing, we are now seeing the road to developing Mimblewimble support as well. But
you are? I thought
we are. Yeah, we've pursued a few. We've been discussing this, so that there is a route forward for this. I can speak to you about that off recording, but I wouldn't discuss that here. But yes, there is a road to that implementation of Mimblewimble support into basic swap DEX. So that will go nicely with our support for essentially crypto note style coins and pure ring CT style coins. But the point is, we got invited to Monerotopia partly because what we were developing was a world first and has never been done before, had never existed prior to bidirectional Monero atomic swaps. Unidirectional atomic swaps for Monero on a DEX just didn't exist until we came along, and certainly bidirectional didn't. And at the moment, Mimblewimble support doesn't exist, but I can tell you it pretty much will. It's just a matter of when, not if.
That's blockbuster news.
So, we got the invite, and at the time Monerotopia was happening, you've got to understand that Monero, they'd been getting delisted from several, I think it was Kraken that delisted them, and there were several other exchanges that were certainly... Back
then, I believe they're still listed on Kraken, I believe.
They're still listed. Okay, good. But yes. I know several major exchanges were kind of playing around. And I think the Monero community have really come to understand that the regulatory framework, certainly from an international point of view, may not always be supportive of them, and reliance on centralized exchange represents a weak point in their liquidity system. So certainly in a time of crisis, that's kind of, rather than steer towards maximalism, rather than steer towards we can do this on our own, actually, one of the most inspiring and the right thing to do is for different communities to come together.
I love that.
To give you the ultimate example, it's in American history. Just over the weekend, I was watching The Titans That Built America. It's a 3-part series that documents essentially the rise of Ford, Chrysler, Boeing, DuPont, and it sort of tells you their stories of how their different empires, their industrial empires came to be and how they rose into ascension before and after the Second World War. And particularly before, I see a real parallel between the history of American industrialism and the history of privacy coins, because before World War II, sort of just between World War I and World War II, there was a period of time in which certainly DuPont was such, he'd financed I think it was General Motors he owned, and he'd worked with JP Morgan. And certainly they'd become so big, but they'd come under attack. And that was partly following the Great Depression. There was a need for a scapegoat. So the Great Depression wasn't purely caused by JP Morgan. It was caused by over leverage in the speculative markets. There were a couple of other factors as well, but the main one was that, you could remortgage your house or take out a giant loan from the bank and then use that to buy stocks on leverage on you could buy a 90%, you could literally buy 10x leverage using borrowed money.
Wow.
So money in the 20s, in the run up to the 1929 Great Depression and the stock market crashes, there was huge, massive over leverage.
Yes.
Beside the point, the markets collapsed because there was just not enough buying momentum left. And I won't go into the factors for that. But the government of the time, which was FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, they were like, look, the country has gone to shit. People are killing themselves left, right, and center. Businesses are struggling. One of the incidentally interesting things there was following the Great Depression, interest rates went up really high. They were really going high, and the consequence of that was companies were struggling to afford borrowing, so they couldn't borrow money to finance their operations. So a lot of businesses just chose to shut down with a huge debt burden, huge losses, employees killing themselves, lots of people losing money left, right, and center, and businesses were shutting down. So, the way this documentary pitched it was that the US government, led by Franklin D. Roosevelt, felt a need to identify a common enemy for the people. So yeah, he did, the forgetting what it's called, the new plan. Essentially, he did the new financing, but
the New Deal.
Yeah, the New Deal. That's it. That's the one. So he did the New Deal, which was massive investment in infrastructure, which is, I always think, that's always the right thing to do. Massive investment in legitimately useful infrastructure that brings real convenience to people's lives. That is the best way to increase liquidity in society. By far, that is the best way to fix any economic problem, is to build infrastructure that makes people's lives more convenient, that allows for the exchange of information and goods. And goods are a unit of information.
Wait a minute. So are you saying that is a better strategy than sending billions and billions and billions to Ukraine for weapons to be able to blow things up?
I think if you are a nation, the first thing you should do is invest in the safety, strength, and growth of your people. So
Amen.
I don't want to over comment on that. If you happen to be investing in munitions and arms companies, then that's great. You're probably going to make some money. Or if you happen to run those companies, that's great.
Right.
And there is a deeper geopolitical struggle and all this other stuff. And I don't want to get into that, because that really comes down to what sort of a nation America wishes to be and what role America wants to have in the world. But, my first thing, and this certainly applies to the UK, because we've had 13 years of austerity, which is essentially cuts to core public infrastructure, including transport, including healthcare, including social services, including literally everything under the sun.
Right.
And when you basically cut back on all of those things for 13 years, after a while, they all turn to shit. But when they turn to shit, you can't get anything done. And when you can't get anything done, you can't have information exchange, goods exchange. And if you can't have information and goods exchange, then you lose liquidity in your society. And if you lose liquidity in your society, your economy goes to shit. That's a really simple explanation for the way the world works.
Folks. I mean, you know what? We can cut that snippet out and we can present it at an econ class in college and just say, okay, now the test.
Yeah. But straightforwardly, to answer your question there, you should be building infrastructure that makes people's lives more convenient. You should be building infrastructure that makes it easier to be self-sufficient, that to build your own goods to become a truly independent nation. That is the goal. Self-sufficiency is an amazing achievement to have, not having to be dependent on external geopolitical forces.
So bridge that to crypto then, please.
So bridging it to crypto. So, FDR, he did the New Deal, which was that thing that I thoroughly recommended. But he also understood this idea of the psychology of, if you want to unite people, you get them behind a common enemy. And it's a very cynical strategy. But at that time, he picked JP Morgan, and he picked the industrial titans who'd literally built the economy, the industrialization of the US. He basically went after these guys. He labeled DuPont a merchant of death.
Wow.
So DuPont was an arms manufacturer during World War I. He basically turned into the world's biggest car manufacturer, GM, General Motors. But he was basically being slated and saying, you were mass producing munitions and selling them for excess profit. So he's saying, you're making too much money. That was his gist. You were a merchant and you were doing that. And he was saying you're unethical. And and the way this documentary puts it, and I say that because I always say, when you watch a documentary, when you watch any piece of historical program, always understand that on some level it's a piece of propaganda. It's always got its own viewpoint that it wants to get across. So I say this through the lens of that documentary, and I'm always open to other lenses and other viewpoints. But through the lens of that documentary, they made a common enemy, which was JP Morgan, DuPont, for these guys, and they went after them and they had them at congressional hearings. And you see the same thing with privacy coins. Which is you have your Monero.
Before we go down that path, I just want to ask you one question because I'm interested and I'm sure others are. Where did you watch this documentary? Where can people watch it? Is it on Netflix? Is it on Amazon? Is it on YouTube?
I think it was streaming on Netflix. If you just look it up, it's called The Titans That Built America. It is it's a 3-part. Each part is about an hour to an hour and a half long. And it's in the IMDb top 100. That's how I discovered it. I was like, this looks interesting. So like going through the list.
Great.
Like,
I will, for everybody, I'll link it in the show notes down below. So good. So thank you. All right. I derailed you. Sorry.
No, not at all. But it links into what's happening with privacy coins. So you have Bitcoin, which is a pseudo-private coin. Let's call it pseudo-anonymous. Right. And you have Monero. And, one of the reputations that Monero got attached to was this idea that you'd have all of these botnet platforms mining Monero. Some of the malware that you might occasionally download might turn out to be a miner for Monero, and you'd be mining Monero cryptocurrency without knowing it. So that was part of the reputation that was linked to. But then another part of the reputation that Monero and Bitcoin are linked to is usage as currency on darknet markets. And obviously, that darknet markets, the most common thought for that is drugs, illicit, highly illegal pornography, drugs, weapons, extortion, blackmail, all kinds of nasty things. So
death
inevitably that association arises. But that's not the fundamental purpose of privacy. We've discussed this before. My point of view is privacy is about, enabling free speech to allow free flow of ideas, and free flow of ideas is free flow of information, which is essentially a boost to your economy, which essentially helps the long-term well-being of your people in the end. But that's a different topic. The point is the privacy coins kind of, even though that was only really, that was, some of this was what it was used for, but it wasn't really all. The majority of these things were used for speculation, and actually there were a lot of legitimate use cases for these. But the point is, in tarring that brush, even though, around the same sort of year that Monero botnets came into government cognition, I think HSBC was convicted of, I'll have to double check my facts here. I think it was like several billion. I don't know. They were found to be laundering several billion for drug cartels or something, some sort of illicit activity. What I'm trying to say to you is, privacy coins, it's easy to say they could be used for illicit activities. But my point is, and let me preface this but our financial system has always been used for illicit activities by a portion of society.
Cash has been used for more illicit activities than privacy coins ever would.
But not even cash. Modern banking systems, or shall we say, soon to be not so modern, but modern banking systems, are known to be, complicit in some of this activity. I think, yes, it was $1 billion that got frozen by a Polish bank that was supplying Bitfinex. So if you go back into the history, if you go around 2016, 2017, I think one of the banks that essentially provided fiat gateways for the Bitfinex exchange, it was a Polish bank. It got frozen because about $850 million of that was being used to launder money for cartels.
Wow.
That was the implication there. Now, I may be wrong. I know I'm more or less right on this, but if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. I don't want to open myself open to, libel or slander, but this is stuff that's happened.
Yeah, of course.
But the fact is, it's an easy brush to paint privacy coins with.
Yes.
And the way I kind of see it is that the privacy coins and the privacy ecosystem provides a genuine escape from state surveillance. So why would governments fear privacy coins? Well, why would people use privacy coins? Are we recording still?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why would the government fear privacy coins? And the answer to that is, why would people use privacy coins? Okay. And the reason to use privacy coins is to escape state surveillance. Now, why would people use privacy coins, or why would people want to escape state surveillance? Because the answer to that is simple. Every so often, you have states that abuse their power. Mm-hmm. Now, the role of the state should be to help its citizens. The role of the state should be to foster growth, to improve the happiness of citizens. These are things I believe.
Sure.
But states don't always function like that. We, across the world now and historically, we've had a number of dictatorships, a number of autocracies, and a number of governments with political styles that are very much, that will persecute people, that are out to hurt people, to put it quite simply.
Yeah.
And so the reason for escaping state surveillance is as a means of protecting oneself from the potential harm of the abuse of state. It's the fundamental argument for separation of state and money, which is, it's the same argument you could apply to separation of state and religion, which is that, if you put one particular religion in charge, if you merge it with a state, you get the risk that you have abuses of power in relation to that. And it's the same with money. If you've got money merged with the state, there is always the possibility that the state will abuse its power to block people out of, access to finances. That is an argument for separation of money and state.
And I think it's fair to say, if you can fog a mirror, that we've seen this kind of abuse. Yeah. I mean, it's rampant worldwide. And so it's not if, it's when. We know what they do if you reject, government policies. And we had 2020 to give us a little peek in the barrel there of what happens to an individual's rights when the abusive, government exudes their control. So with finances, you're talking about, why are they implementing these CBDCs? And the answer is control. Now, what I love about you, Dr. Cap, is you believe that CBDCs are a gateway into privacy crypto. And if you don't understand that, folks, go back down and watch my interview with Dr. Cap, and you'll feel a little bit better about the CBDCs. But okay, I digress.
Yeah. No, but like I said, the privacy coins, you've got all these state systems, all these existing institutions.
Yeah.
And I think the primary function, it was beautiful, but the primary function of an organization or an organism is self-preservation. And that doesn't just apply to organisms, that applies to organizations. So the primary function of a state is to preserve itself. And the primary function of a government is to preserve itself. And the primary function of a bank is to preserve itself. Because the primary function of everything is, at its core, self-interest. Now, if you're an empathetic person, your sense of self is much broader than just you and you alone.
Right.
But empathy is a variable. It's on a continuum. It exists in different levels in different people across society. So, when we deal with states, when we deal with individuals, I think it's always good to get an idea of how empathetic they are, because you get a sense of, where their sense of self is. Is that inclusive of the other people around them?
I
see,
and it's the
right. Same. And it's the same with organizations and governments. You can get a sense of the empathy on which the individuals that compose that government operate on through the policies they enact and pursue.
Yeah.
Going back to the events of 2020, I feel that could have been a moment of great reconciliation. Rather than going for punitive punishment, we could have taken the time to understand why, what led people to those actions. And we could have had an honest dialogue. And rather than punishment, we could have had amnesty. That's what I think.
That would have been
We could have had a moment. And that's what I genuinely feel. It's a time for reflection, insight, and dialogue, not for censorship and excommunication and imprisonment. That is not really what this should be about.
No.
So that's my take. And you can kind of get a sense of empathy. Thank you. But that's how I see things.
I'm as I'm wont to do. Sometimes I'll derail an interview just to tell a quick personal story because I think it's on point. I have a pretty significant piece of property behind my home that has a lot of deer. It has a lot of raccoons and everything. Now my front yard, we're part of an HOA, and the neighborhood was always just any post that you would see in the Facebook community group was about those damned raccoons, getting into our trash, being disruptive and everything. Well, I ended up I have a place for a bonfire out there, and ended up having a woman that came over, a friend of our family, who is one of these, you'd probably say kind of a granola person, very, very in touch with nature. And we were around that bonfire, and she made a comment that really it did impact me and will impact me for the rest of my life. And it's exactly what you stated about self-preservation. She said, we were talking about the raccoons, and she goes, "You know what, Todd? They just want to live. That's all. They're just looking for food because self-preservation, right? So not just a human being, but you're talking about animals, organisms, a bank, whatever. But do you know, my relationship with those raccoons changed from that point on. So what I started doing is researching, what do they like? What's good for them? They love almonds. They love bananas. They love, I sneak them some cookies every once in a while, peanut butter cookies. Grapes, they absolutely go nuts over grapes. And so I decided, you know what? Self-preservation is what they're looking for. They're just hungry. And I did a little experiment. Started off about a year ago, and it continues to this day. But the good news is, before I tell you what it was, is the Facebook community now says, wow, it's amazing. The raccoons never come into our garbage anymore. So why? It's because I personally literally go back there every morning, every afternoon. Matter of fact, I'm going to go out right after this, and there's about now a dozen raccoons back there. I've seen lots of families born and such. There's one of my favorites. His mom passed away. I don't know what happened, but ever since he was 3 months, he just kind of is attached to me. So when I go out, he just boogies and he comes right up and he'll get on my leg, he's like, oh, good, food's here, Chef Todd. And he'll get in my lap and I feed him, and he's my favorite. I just love him. And as I've gotten to know all of these raccoons and I've been feeding them, I realize raccoons and probably so many other animals out there get a really bad rap. And so it has helped me expand my empathy for nature, right? And instead of fighting against it, how about, supporting it and figuring out how to be constructive and live in synchronicity with it. So, and I just installed a food forest close to my home, and I haven't had any problem with the raccoons or the deer because I've literally made a pact with them. I talk to them. I'm like, hey guys, deer, I'll come spread lots of corn every day, for you guys to be able to graze on and eat. Raccoons, I'll come out. I know what you like. I'll take care of all of you. You leave my food forest alone, okay? And it seems to be working. But I just wanted to tell that story, A, because it's a PSA for raccoons. If you see them in the day, no, they're not rabid. They're just hungry. Okay, sorry about that.
No, but I think it's a great anecdote because it kind of when you were saying it actually was making me think of central banks. And it's like you've got these people in central banks who are in their own sphere, and they're in charge of managing a much larger sphere than the one that they live in.
Yes.
But because they're so shut off in that little sphere, because they've not ventured out into the world and really formed a deeper relationship with their environment by exploring it, their decision making is thus impacted. So it's like, for them, it's like, fuck me, the raccoons are digging through the bins. What do? Set the bins on fire.
Or trap the raccoons and kill them.
Yes. Which is not a synergistic relationship. No. And it doesn't allow you to truly appreciate your environment. This is the thing about empathy. It's about being able to really appreciate your environment in every little detail. But it's a detour. We could go on this, but it's going back to the whole, the privacy coins came, the institutions are looking for self-preservation. They'll look at these and go, these are actually a threat because we can't surveil these. We can't control them.
Right.
So let's just go up. We don't really understand them, or we think we do, but we understand them in the way that we perceive them as a threat to us.
Right.
So rather than work with them, rather than see the benefits of them, or rather than finding a way to work together, it's like, okay, let's legislate these things out. Let's attack these things. Let's push our news wires out, and let's push our articles out, and let's put pressure on different organizations that are supporting these things to stop supporting these things.
Yeah.
So that's why, as long as you've got centralized organizations like centralized exchanges, privacy coins are at risk. So what's happened in this transitional era where, and Bitcoin's not a privacy coin, it is a public ledger which can be traced.
Yeah, it's a surveillance coin.
Exactly, it's a surveillance coin. And the powers that be have embraced that. And the people who've made their money off that are embracing that side to it as well, because, it's a liquidity point for Bitcoin at the end of the day, and people want liquidity.
And so everybody, just so that you know that the Druid Babylonian bastards have embraced it, is, I don't know, what is the market cap now? Maybe $500 billion, maybe I don't know, probably 600 billion. But check this out. The largest surveillance company on chain, oh gosh, the name just escapes me, Chainalysis. You know how much they generate in revenues from harvesting the information and selling it?
I have no idea.
$20 billion. 20
Is that
billion
a year?
A year. $20 billion. That's how much, if you're a Bitcoin holder, sorry, everybody, but they are looking under the hood. And I use this analogy a lot because it is my right to shut the door when I go to the bathroom. Doesn't mean I'm doing anything nefarious in there. I just want it to be in private. I don't want to go into a airport that has nothing but glass stalls. No, I want to be in private, and it doesn't mean I'm doing anything nefarious. But Chainalysis, man, they go in and they look in those bathroom stalls, and they're just poking around. They're seeing, like, what's he pulling up on his phone right now? He has a girlfriend. That's good. He just sent her some money. I know he's married. That didn't look, I'm being kind of facetious, but that's what they're doing. They're looking at anything that you do. Where where you send it. And do you know, if I know your Bitcoin address, I can tell everything that you've done inside your wallet, where you've sent it to, what you've received, how much you have, what the transactions were, and I can hop to the next person if I have their address. So it is really easy for them to do that. So while pseudo-anonymous is correct, it is absolutely a surveillance coin. And if it's me, I'm not in Bitcoin. I'm in privacy coins.
And I think you're right to be. I think this is my thing, is that they're attacking these, and this is the third part of that documentary, The Titans Who Built America, was World War II came along.
Yeah.
So after a period that you had these titans, these giants who built these huge industries that were and still are the industrial backbone of America, they're now attacked between World War I and II. World War II comes along, and it comes down to a greater threat, a common enemy, which was Nazi Germany, assaulting Russia, marching on Europe, them knowing that if Britain gets taken, America's next, and then the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor. That was the real trigger for the US involvement, was Pearl Harbor. And at that point, at the point of the Pearl Harbor bombings, the US government did not have the industrial base that the private sector had to mass manufacture arms and weapons of warfare. So what the US government did, after they'd spent several years kind of, tearing these titans up, is they actually had to turn to them and say they recognized Ford. He was the one guy who was capable of doing mass production.
Wow.
He had basically pioneered mass production techniques with the Model T Ford. Elon's a huge fanboy, named his cars after the Model T Ford because Ford had pioneered mass manufacturing. Until Ford, you did not have mass manufacturing of a single good. You didn't have assembly line constructions that were running in parallel. You didn't have parallel part construction.
Right.
That was Ford. Okay. So they
I cannot wait to watch this series. I'm watching it tonight.
Brilliant documentary. So they turned to Ford and said, "We need your help." They turned to DuPont, who was running General Motors, and said, "Listen, I know that we've spent the last few years haranguing you for having manufactured weapons, munitions, and we've even given you the moniker Merchant of Death. But we need you now
We're
to
dealing
manufacture
with
munitions. We need you to be that Merchant of Death."
Wow.
And it was, with Boeing, we need you to manufacture. Well, it was Ford as well. Actually, it was Ford who manufactured planes. With Boeing, we need you again for your expertise. And we needed, it was another company. It was constructions. I'm forgetting the name now. But we needed all of these different giants, these industrialists who built in the private sector, who had been harangued. And we needed JP Morgan. Funnily enough, we needed JP Morgan to help finance this stuff as well.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
You had these guys who'd worked together to build the private industrial base, they innovated mass industrialization, they innovated mass production, they innovated assembly lines, they innovated the entire credit system of purchasing, buying to own in installments. That was innovated in that era by JP Morgan in collaboration with DuPont and General Motors. The lease buying of cars or leasing of cars, that was innovated in the early 20s as a means of making more money. That was JP Morgan and General Motors working together and to try and outcompete Ford, because Ford owned Motors at this point.
Okay.
And the point is, the government, they weren't specialists in this area. They were like, hang on a minute, we need to turn to the guys who've innovated all this technology. We need their help now because we have a real problem. So that actually brought these. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you see a future where the financial system now turns to privacy tech or privacy tech developers and said, "Oh, wow, we need your help now," like back then? Or is that just a pipe dream?
I think it's going to be AI. I don't know why. I think it's going to be AI. I think it's going to be that we'll have a public liquidity system where every transaction is surveilled. And I suspect we're going to have artificially artificial intelligence botnets owned and deployed by different nation states and by different private entities competing against each other, probably for arbitrage on this public liquidity network.
Yes.
The surveillance coins, which will be CBDCs and Bitcoin, and probably Ethereum as well. I won't lie, because Ethereum is very smart contract heavy, and that will be a big part of a surveillance future, is smart contracts, because it will enable automated taxation, automated charging at point of transaction. And that is something states will want to incorporate. That is easy money for them, as well as states harvesting the data from their own CBDCs and selling them to private companies at profit. That's huge analytics money.
So that'll put Chainalysis to shame. Who's making 20 billion off of that data, right? They're just.
Well, if you're telling me Chainalysis is making 20 billion now, I'd say find out whatever share is their ticket on. If you're looking for speculative investments, this is me talking purely in a neutral entity. They're probably going to diversify into this because they're the market leader from that sense, and they're making the money, and they're going to look, where's our next big expansion point? It's going to be data analytics on e-commerce on public blockchains, which includes CBDCs. That's just obvious. That's going to be, doing private surveillance on behalf of nation states for CBDCs at cost. They're going to charge through. They're going to be like the modern day Pegasus. Pegasus spyware, the company that deployed that. Chainalysis. That's the natural route for them to evolve into.
Oh my gosh.
If you're looking at your next big mega corporation. I'm just saying this purely as someone who's being objective here. I'd say, start looking at look for when Chainalysis decides to do an IPO, or try and even get in well before that, because IPOs, I don't want to get into this. I think a lot of the IPOs are garbage scams, but if you're getting in well before an IPO, then that's a different story.
Wow. But look, I do have a hard stop in 10 minutes. So let's wrap this up for now, because you are going to be a regular guest, and I'm really glad you suggested that we hit the record button so that this conversation benefits a lot of other people, not just me. So thank you for that. So let's end by talking a little bit about what you do, represent, and just give us a little bit of a reminder of Particle and your DEX, and where the future of all of that is going.
So, and it answers this question. Well, the privacy coins are all coming together now. We recognize we're under attack. So we're all starting to coalesce. So I'm an advisor to the Particle project.
Stop.
Yep.
Can you share real quick, because I know about your Twitter spaces, but I'm sure a lot of other people don't. Can you share a little bit about that? Because that is we'll be able to witness and listen to this great group of privacy cryptos, tech leaders coming together in one place and having really engaged dialogue. I can't wait for those. Can you share a little bit about that? And I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh, no, of course. So this is part of us coming together, as an advisor to the Particle project. Every so often, so we're on very good terms with Fero, Monero, PivX, Navcoin, Lunapunk Squad. We have good relationships with them. We're obviously building good relationships with you and some of the communities that you represent.
Yes.
And the thing is, the privacy communities are coalescing. They're coming together. They're representing for each other. Maximalism is dying. That's giving away to this crisis, this big existential crisis. In the face of that, let's come together and work together to succeed. And one of the things that we do is very much like this discussion, this free flow we're having today, is we have discussions like this every so often through sort of a Twitter space that we organize. So every so often it will be Fero that gets to host our joint Twitter space. Sometimes it'll be PivX. Sometimes it rotates to Particle Project or Basic Swap. Sometimes it will rotate to Zano, another excellent privacy coin, I might add. But the point is, we're here to showcase these different privacy projects and give their public faces a chance to discuss why privacy matters, to discuss a lot of important geopolitical topics, much like the stuff we've been discussing in this talk.
Right.
It follows a very similar format. It's free.
I love it.
It's an open discussion.
That's
where,
why I want to be involved in it, just to be that non-techie who just asks a lot of questions.
yeah.
I'm really excited about it.
And we welcome that because we want to grow our community mutually. We want to grow together, and we want more people to get involved, because these insights that you and I are having today, they should be shared. That everyone should know.
Yes.
Everyone should know the future of chain analysis, the probable future of chain analysis.
Right.
Everyone should understand why privacy is important. Everyone should understand the history of the industrial titans, because it's all relevant. It's all interconnected. Everyone should understand empathy. Everyone should understand how you had developed that relationship with the raccoons. That is all important.
Yeah.
It is vital because it teaches us how we can interact with the world in a way that's beneficial. So, I invite you to our Twitter spaces. I invite your community.
How would people find your Twitter spaces?
So the best things to do would be to follow any of the projects that host them.
Here, let me insert this. If people go to t.me/epic private money, and the epic isn't about epic cash, it's about private money being epic. It is an adjective. And we have you in there. We have Ruben from Firo in there. We have others. If you just join that, then what you could do is you could post in there information on where to follow, to be able to and get notified that the Twitter spaces are happening. And then when the Twitter spaces are going to happen and we know a specific time, we can really promote it in there as well. So that'll give people one-stop shop to be able to start getting to know these other projects.
Thank you. And I will very much take you up on that offer, because, like I said, I think if they join the Epic Private Money channel, we will post those links, because they happen every so often. I'll tell you how it happens. We sit around, we chat, and then we go, what dates can we all meet? Because we're on multiple time zones. We're like multiple calendars. So when we get that sorted, we pick the date, and then we kind of pick the topic. So you know what? It's great that you're offering this, because so often in the past, we've been like a week and a half in advance, but it'll just be great to have you guys pushing Epic Private Money is the place to go when these notifications happen, when these spaces happen.
And please, you and the other projects, I invite you to come in here and invite your community members to come in, because I really do look at this as an opportunity to abandon true math, which is 1 + 1 = 2, where 1 + 1 can really equal 11. If we're together, 1 + 1 + 1 can equal 111. We have to start thinking that way instead of in our own little silos. Gone are the silos. Let's do this together. And so I would love for Epic Private Money to become that conduit of all of the privacy projects out there, to be able to organize and coordinate and cheer each other on, and share new milestones, benchmarks, or whatever, and do that to where, if I'm a Monero maxi and somebody comes along from Firo and talks about something that just has been accomplished, as a Monero maxi, let's say, I want to be able to look at that and just say, job well done. I can't wait to dig into that and understand it more and support it. I mean, that's how we win, everyone. It's not us being A team, B team, red team, blue team.
Thank you. And I completely agree with that sentiment. So I'm going to leave it there. When we do our next space, when we agree on next date, we will post it in Epic Private Money.
Beautiful.
In the meantime, if you kind of want to follow what I'm with, feel free to follow on Twitter at Particle Project or at Basic Swap Dex.
Could you spell Particle Project? Because I think people will misspell it.
Of course. So it's PARTICL Project. So that's the Twitter handle at Particle Project. Great. And the other project that I represent for is at Basic Swap Dex. So you can go to basicswapdex.com and download the world's most private and anonymous DEX, which supports multiple privacy coins, including bidirectional Monero swaps. And we will be working towards Mimblewimble support as well.
And that, though, just I want to let everybody listening know, to really take advantage of that, fully have it optimized. Yeah, you almost need a dedicated machine for it, right? That stays on all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a kind of dedicated device, always on solution, but that is the most. If you do it, we are simplifying this. So we're building a web framework. So you'll eventually be able to access a website, which will then load an instance of it. But, if you want the most private and secure solution, which has zero KYC, has zero, well, I'm not going to say zero tracking risk, but, pretty damn close to it.
Yeah.
Certainly will give chain analysis some real problems. I would say that is the DEX to go for. And certainly if you're looking to do KYC free, truly private, truly anonymous eBay style e-commerce, then the Particle marketplace, if you download Particle Desktop from particle.io, download that, set it up, have a look at, the items of sale. Anyone can be a seller, anyone can be a buyer. It's a really interesting platform. The things we're looking to do are integrate basic swap into Particle marketplace so that we can then integrate multiple currency support into Particle marketplace so that, people who use essentially any coin, any privacy coin particularly, will be able to use that to just directly buy and sell goods online using cryptocurrency fiat free. That's very much our goal and end game.
So instead of the dark web, it's going to be the light web. This is a ray of sunshine, everybody. You have something that you would sell on eBay or Amazon or something, you'll be able to sell it here privately. And I just love that. And so, I really encourage everybody to, I know your project has been around for like 7 years, but really as far as where the puck is going, this is really early with your project. So I think if anybody out there, and I'm raising my hand, wants to, start getting involved with some of these projects on the ground floor level, then please, learn about Particle Project and the basic swap DEX. And I'm going to figure out how to be able to download it to a dedicated. I'm just waiting for my buddy at Above Phone. He almost has the laptops ready to go that are like de-Googled phones. I have his de-Googled phone. This is a de-Googled Linux laptop that operates like a PC. It's so simple that even I can use it. And when I get that, that's when I will have that on full time, and I'll be downloading your DEX.
Thank you. And funnily enough, speaking of that crisis, just to say that, I was just thinking about this now, and it sounds like a detour, but I think actually the crisis that the public liquidity ecosystem is going to see, I'm going to lay it out for you right now.
Okay.
It's going to be AI systems that are going to look for arbitrage opportunities in real world's good markets. Now, you see with Amazon, at the moment, Amazon can do data analysis on every vendor on its platform.
Yep.
And if it sees a product that's spiking in sales activity, it has the manufacturing base and contacts to build an alternative vendor directly owned by them that can manufacture and sell those same products at a lower price.
Wow.
So I think the big crisis in the public liquidity sphere is going to be, I'll almost say, over competition killing innovation. And that is simply going to be because I think you're going to see a company and they'll build a really good product, and you'll see an AI bot spot that, and it'll inform some private or state actor, you need to build this much faster.
Wow.
And that will discourage people from innovating because what's the point?
You're right. What is the point after all? Yeah.
And and then you'll be like, we need privacy. If we're going to innovate, if the small guy is going to stand a chance against the big state entity or the big mega corporation, we're going to need to use the private liquidity sphere. And that is the next crisis in our economy.
Yeah. And at that point in time, when all of the motivation exits society, that's when you guys can look forward to, you can binge watch Netflix all day and order your Uber Eats and drink your big 2-liter Coke and stuff. Isn't that going to be great, everybody? That's our future? No, it's not our future. And so, let's all stick together here and manifest a new, different private future. So with that, Doc, thank you for suggesting we hit record, and I will edit this and get this published over the next day or so. But it was a true pleasure, and I look forward to more.
No worries, Todd.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
My goodness. I got you some bananas and some almonds, and we got some cookies right there. You got the cookie. You got the peanut butter cookie. You're a pretty smart one. Hi, Mama. Hi, buddy. And then there's Shysta. Shysta's too shy. Oh, Mama, you little biatch. Stop it. Goodness gracious. I have enough food for everyone. Watch. Hey, Shysta. Yeah, they don't know that I'm throwing them to you. Yes, they can just pound sand, can't they? Whoops, I'm sorry, that wasn't Shysta. Okay. Shysta, where are you? Yay. There you go, Shysta. Now you get to eat some dinner. Oh, just hanging around. What do they call it on Halloween? Bobbling for cookies, bobbling for bananas, bobbling for grapes. I think I'll have to clean the water tomorrow since all the cookie crumbs, right? Oh, don't be sad. Don't be sad, Shysta. I'll throw you some more. Shysta. Yay! Yay! You can find it? Oh, good girl. Or boy, I don't know. I don't know. If anybody can tell me how to tell, I'd appreciate it. Well, hi. Hi. Are you gonna come? Are you gonna come get some? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come on. You wanna come get some? You wanna come get some? Oh, I love you. Come here. Come here. Come here. Here. You want to come get some more? Huh? You're just brave, aren't you? You want to grab it? Here. There you go. Here. So much time. So little time, I should say, and so much to eat. Hi.